And all of that news brings us now to our candidate spotlight tonight. West Virginia's Derek Evans is running against an incumbent, Carol Miller, in the 1st District's 2024 GOP primary. Evans is a staunch supporter of President Trump and the America First movement. He's also a former member of the West Virginia House of Delegates, saying this about his current campaign in a tweet. "I'm running for Congress to take on the deep state. Most politicians talk about it. I already did it. I'm the only elected legislator in the country to be arrested for peacefully protesting on January 6. From West Virginia State Representative to the U.S. Congress, I will never give up and I will never back down." Joining us now to discuss what happened to him on January 6th, the release of the tapes, and his bid for the West Virginia Congress seat is Derek Evans. So Derek and I met backstage, folks, so you know some context here, at Brandon Straka's Walkaway movement a couple weeks ago down in Florida. I was very impressed with Derek's passion, and so I said, let's get you on the show. Derek, welcome.
Hey, Dan, so good to be here, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
So tell folks, just so we can get it out of the way, for all the media matters and left-wing liars that'll take the interview and say Dan Ball's promoting a bunch of insurrectionists. He had this insurrectionist kid on Derek. Tell folks where you were on the 6th, what you did, then what they charged you with, and what you had to go through.
Well, I was on the east side of the building. I never saw any violence or destruction that day. I was never even charged with violence or destruction, let alone convicted of anything such as that. I walked through an open set of doors. I thanked a police officer for his service, and it's all on video. People can watch it for themselves. I went straight over to a police officer, thanked him for his service. He gave me a friendly fist bump, inviting me into the building. I spent less than 10 minutes inside the public rotunda area, walked back out the same set of doors I entered, only to find myself in the crosshairs of the same weaponized deep state that's going after President Trump. They came to me, they ripped me away from my wife and my children, and threw me in prison and held me hostage as a January 6th political prisoner.
How long between the 6th, when they came knocking at your door arresting you?
I was arrested on January 8th, so I was one of the very first people arrested, and it's because I was the highest-ranking government official they could get their hands on. You got to think, all these spineless jellyback rhinos, not only in Congress, but all across the country, who ran on President Trump's coattails, said that they were MAGA, said that they were going to, they were different, they were willing to step up and drain the swamp. When it came time to actually stand with the American people and peacefully and patriotically protest the stolen election, they did not have the courage to do so. I'm the only one that did, and then I paid the consequences for that. But look, I don't have any regrets in terms of standing up for what I believe in and standing against the tyranny that we find ourselves living under today.
What kind of BS did they charge you with, and how did you fight that? What was the end result?
Yeah, so I had the 4 basic misdemeanors, and then they end up eventually hitting me with the 1512 obstruction of official proceeding, which is a 20-year felony. So I was facing 24 years in prison. We endured an 18-month legal battle that pretty much just bankrupted my family. It was a emotional roller coaster, to say the least. Ended up taking the civil disorder charge, got sentenced to 3 months in federal prison, and then I did 8 days of solitary confinement because I refused the COVID vaccine while they were holding me hostage.
Good for you. And you say you do it all over again.
Hey, if that's what it takes to save our country, then that's what it takes to save our country. We got to do whatever it takes to preserve liberty and individual freedom for our children and future grandchildren and the future generations of this country.
You were a member of the West Virginia, you guys call it a House of Representatives or House of Delegates. That's right, it's different in the Virginias, House of Delegates. Now you're running for Congress. Did you getting busted affect your leadership role then in your House of Delegates? What happened to all of that political?
Yeah. Well, same as we see all across the country, a bunch of spineless jellyback rhinos who didn't have the courage to stand up to the media pressure that was just ensuing on our state at the time. They were ready to vote me out of there. I was in handcuffs, and so ended up resigning from that position. And I had to, because I can't fight 2 battles at the same time. I'm taking on the most powerful, corrupt government in history of the world. Needed to put my family and my freedom first so I could live to fight another day. And so happy that we're here at this point now. We got most of this behind us in terms of that regard, and we can now stand on the national stage beside President Trump and beat the drum of freedom, not only for West Virginia, but for every single American conservative across this country.
Let's talk about when that video got released. How'd you feel when you heard that Speaker Johnson was going to start dumping the 40,000 hours of tapes? When we waited on McCarthy for almost a year, he actually said it, and I'll repeat it, on this program. I believe it was January or February he came on only one time. And I asked him for the tapes, and he said, we'd get them. He was going to release them. Didn't. Mike Johnson, in his first couple of weeks, setting them out there. Is that going to do anything, do you think, for your case, or yours is settled? Or obviously for folks that are still imprisoned right now or still facing their charges, this is going to be a big help. And for President Trump.
Well, first of all, we got to thank Matt Gaetz and the 8 members of the Freedom Caucus who had the courage to stand up and replace Kevin McCarthy, who, as you pointed out, he was making any promise and every promise he could just to try to get a taste of that power. No one had ever been removed from Speaker of the House. He thought once he got there, he could just lay there and do whatever he wanted and renege on his promises, which have been proven to not to be not to be true because he got ousted, and he's always going to be remembered for that. And thanks to Speaker Johnson for keeping his word and keeping his promise and releasing the footage to the American people, not to select members of the media, but to the public for everyone to see it for themselves. It won't do anything for me personally. My case is already over with, but they're still arresting people every single day. I don't think the
Right.
American people truly understand. They're still arresting people. People are still getting persecuted from this. And so I'm
I
speaking
know.
out for them
Almost
and
3
want
years
this footage
later.
released.
I mean,
Yeah.
come on. If you're that bad of a criminal, it took them 3 years to go arrest him? This is, if you people
Yeah.
can't see this is all political warfare, then God help us. Let's talk about the campaign real quick. Talk about the seat you're running for, who you're trying to knock out, and how we get more details about your platform.
Yeah. First of all, anybody can go to my website, evansforwv.com. Go there, find out more information about our issues, join our team, donate if you want to do so. If nothing else, add us to your prayers. This is spiritual warfare of good versus evil. We need all the prayers we can get. Look, this is one of the reddest districts in the entire country. I tell everyone all the time, we got to start flipping the red districts red. And what I mean by that is there's roughly 70 congressional districts across this country that it doesn't matter who wins the Republican primary. Whoever wins the Republican primary is going to win the general election. This happens to be one of those seats. And, we got to go from having a moderate to a rhino representative to someone who's going to stand on the national stage with the Freedom Caucus, someone who wants to join the Freedom Caucus. And as I said earlier, beat the drum of freedom, not only for West Virginia and our district, but for every single American conservative across this country. That's what we're missing right now. We need to send some backup into the Freedom Caucus members who are holding the line right now, and we need to send them some help. And that's what I intend to do.
Yeah, who's the gal that you're running against in the primary that's the incumbent rhino?
Yeah, her name is Carol Miller. Look, she's a nice lady. Nothing against her personally. Sure, she's an excellent mother, an excellent grandmother. But this is not the time for weak politicians. This is not a time for patty cake politics. This is not a time for someone who voted to force our military members to receive the COVID vaccine to
Oof.
continue their career in the military. She also has voted to send billions and billions of your tax dollars to Ukraine. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. This is one of the reddest districts in the country. And for the record, she has refused to openly and publicly endorse President Trump, which I've done from day one.
Well, and regardless if you're supporting Trump or not, which you know I do, the bottom line is if you're voting lockstep with the good old boys and girls in that swamp, you got to go. Just because you have an R in front of your name doesn't mean you're doing what's right and doesn't mean you're on board with the America First agenda, and I know you are. Derek Evans, he's running for West Virginia's 1st congressional district. It's Evans for WV. You want to learn more about his campaign. Derek, thank you, man. Pleasure meeting you. Take care.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate you.
Yep, happy Thanksgiving.